Welcome to NAP, the Nexus Art Project.
And this week we have Cello Assini, Billy Beaumont and Ellis Everson.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the NAP.
The Nexus Art Project.
We have a couple of guests to our right hand side. Esteemed Ellis Everson, or is it Everson?
Everson.
You were
I
correct.
told you.
And Billy Beaumont, wonderful painter.
Hello, good afternoon,
muralist.
good evening. I'm not sure what time it's supposed to be because this is my nap time.
Night time, nap time.
It is
Funny
indeed nap
enough.
time.
Wake up for the nap.
Yes. Wake
Sadly,
up
we have
On a Sunday evening.
Cello Assini, who was billed to come on and join us on the show, who's a little bit under the weather. So hope you get well soon, Cello. We will surely be filling in the time with some healthy conversation about some of your work, no doubt, and how it relates certainly to the work of Ellis, and it relates to the work of Billy as well, because you're both street artists and muralists to boot, and that is a
I
term
prefer
we
the
can
warmth
use.
these days.
Yeah, painting side.
Not so much street, more the art.
Is this just like your stand-up routine?
It could be,
It could
hopefully,
be.
yeah. And I was just going to add as well, cello. I'm pretty sure I know cello, but when you mentioned about bringing an art kit in and doing something live, I thought I had this idea. I'll do an abstract cello. Because I thought there was a cellist or celloist or whatever the word is.
Okay,
So
that'll
I'm
work.
sorry, cello, if you're listening. I'm really sorry about that. I'm pretty sure I know you, but I actually thought there was a live cello player.
It was part of the Redcliffe Collective. A bunch of the artists
sure I
doing
know.
all the
Yeah,
murals around
sure.
Swindon currently that have been springing
Apologies for thinking he was an instrument.
up. He is an instrument, no doubt. He's a
instrument
wonderful
name.
lyricist.
He is.
He's a wonderful. I've sat and done some freestyling with him back in the day. I knew cello for 25 plus years, and he's worked with a bunch of bands, Nubian, and a bunch of other Beat Bullies, and a bunch of other guys. His last band was the Love God and the Chairman.
Love God and the Chairman.
So yeah, hey cello, work it out. However, we got these beautiful human beings in here today. We've just been having a little chat in the green room out the back prior to coming on the show. Just having a glass of wine and a little chat of coffee, a little bite to eat, and just chatting about really how we got to this position where we sat in here in this lovely room, ready to talk about.
About art, about what we do, about how we know each other, how we connected, because Nexus Art Project is all about collaborations and connections between the artists from different art disciplines.
We'll try and keep it focused on the
Disciples
We will
of
try,
this
yes.
music.
Disciples
It could
of
go
discipline.
anywhere.
Disciples.
They are. We're all disciples of some discipline or another. Some with less discipline, and as we both well know as well, don't we, Billy? So, I mean, one of the first things really we were
family
going to
show.
talk about. The first thing we got excited. We was having a chat. We had a call with you this week, Ellis, and you've released a single. You've had a single come out, Lipstick.
Friday. No, cool.
Cool.
Is it called? That's
Yeah.
the recent one you've done. You've done the collaboration, and that's Lipstick. That was with Ezra Bell. Right?
Ezra Bell, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, the single, cool. Talk to
Yeah.
us. Tell us all about it. Where's it come from? And how's it going?
So yeah, Cool's. So I just released the first single for my upcoming album, which was Laundry Day, which is more of a fun kind of funk banger.
We thank you for showing
Sending
us a preview.
We got a preview.
Yeah,
It was
we've got
really
a cheeky
privileged
preview.
to get a little listen to, which we can't talk too much because obviously. You've
Well,
got-
yeah. So
But
you've
we
heard
can
feed.
say it is amazing.
There's a lot to relate to, and it's very current.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so like Laundry Day is on that first half of the album, and that's very much like a funk banger. And when I was trying to pick which songs I wanted to do as singles, it was like, okay, we've got this slice of the really positive side, and I also want a slice of the other grisly side of it. So that's what Core is. It is for me it feels like a flip of that Laundry Day song. So it's kind of it's a chorus focused track. but
Washing
it's-
your laundry in public kind of
it's
vibe.
more, yeah, so more,
you know?
yeah. But
Yeah.
so the whole core thing revolves around this like rotten to the core aspect, and like the idea that what I'm dealing with in the album is about the country systemic failings. So talking about that being like a rotten all the way through because of how it
Yeah,
goes.
Because then it
can't-
translates to people's families and individuals' lives, right?
Yeah,
and to
100%.
relationships between individuals in that circumstance.
Yeah, we can't really. I mean, we often try to avoid talking politics, for example, if we're talking arts because we're celebrating arts, but quite often and more often than not, they're entwined, and you often find that
Yeah.
the art is being born out of bad politics, say, and equally so, you know, there could be a purple patch of society where they're able to really express themselves, and you have a lot of wonderful art coming out, and that can be you can go back eons, you know, to be able to see examples of that.
It
You know,
can
the
easily
Greeks
push it
coming
the
up
other
to
way
today.
as far as art's concerned.
sure.
You think, I really
The
don't want to
oppression.
cover the politics.
Yeah.
So you've made a conscious decision not to go politics.
Yeah,
It's
but
still
it
politics.
ingrades into the world, like much like when we was listening to your album, that was coming through. You felt there was a real frustration, and it was clearly coming through from your experience with the current way that, you know, the life that's living, and that is the politics of today. And without
But it's
touching on politics,
inevitable.
coming
It's
through your work.
inevitable for artists, I think, to be the digestive system to what is happening around us. So whatever are the social issues. So politics aside, but
Or
parts
the
of politics,
projectors, yeah.
the social issues. So whatever we face on a daily basis, you know, we kind of digest it, and then in our art, willingly or not, we naturally
Subjectively,
express
you
it.
can't
Yeah.
get away from it. It's going to come out in your art one way or another.
I think that's
Yeah.
where, if you're living on the edge and you're an artist on the edge and you're willing to push yourself to that edge, and there's, you know, Abramovich, she's one that's, I mean, I not particularly love her of her art, but she certainly lives it on the edge, and she's always pushing the boundaries. I mean, you know, you've talked about her a few times, and I'm like, Marmite. And I appreciate somebody who's she's really gone into depth, and she goes into great theory and psychological depth
But
of
we all-
her artwork, and I suppose we can all say that our artwork is born through a psychological, whether it's a misgiving or a trauma or something, and we've all, we as artists are often born through the struggle and the strive, or you know, in some cases it's,
But this is-
you know, viewing the beautiful, right?
Yeah, this is why I love the idea of the concept album that this is the album that you're currently working on. That's
Yeah,
the,
so this is
the
still.
concept.
I mean, as of like last week, it's done in terms of sound.
Yeah.
But apart from
Celebrate.
just getting it ready
Cup of
for
tea till that
coming
finishes
out next
next
year,
year.
yeah.
Yeah, well done.
Fantastic.
But
Yeah.
it's been 2 years in the making, and it's fun because a lot of it was like, some of it was written 2 years ago and some of it was written 6 months ago. So it's like it was finding constant challenges, like how do you make this thing cohesive in tone and like how you feel all the way through. But I spent a lot of time on it, and I went to a talk recently with a lot of jazz musicians, and they talked about like, if you're not pushing yourself to be uncomfortable, then you're probably not making the right type of music for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you coined
It's a
the
good
phrase. We were
comment.
talking
Yeah,
to
it's a
somebody,
good
and
comment.
somebody used this description. It was Will Hughes.
Yeah.
He was,
Hi, Will.
it might have been David Bowie. Anybody can write in an email
But it's
and tell us whether I'm right or wrong. It might have been Bowie who said, you, as an artist and musician, whatever it is, the field that you're in, you have to imagine it's like you're walking out into the ocean, and as you're going out, you're getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And as an artist, when you're testing your band, you should be up to the point of your nose, and you're ready to then take that one next step. And to live on the edge as an artist and try to be putting yourself out of your comfort zone. You know, so it's whether you're like, recently we did an experimental play with music with Matt, the camera guy, and the gentleman who's putting a lot of this together. We got out there and we put this thing together, and it was this experience of, it was out of the comfort zone, and
yeah, because
you know,
it involved acting,
Yeah.
it involved
And so trying
dancing,
it.
it involved
and it felt like we'd gone up.
writing a
You know,
script.
we had to occasionally pull each
spot
other up
on.
out the wall
Yeah.
to get air, because we were,
Yeah.
you know, we were out of our comfort zone. But eventually, you realise you've just grown an inch or two, and you can breathe.
Absolutely.
And I think it's an exciting thing. Sometimes it can have its pitfalls, because it's not always going to work. You
Yeah.
could be trying a genre. You could try writing a book. You could
Yeah.
be trying to.
It's that constant
something else, make
experimentation.
pottery,
You need
you
to
know,
be doing
yeah.
that. Yeah, you need to be doing it.
But I think on both bases with this album, like, a lot of that process became just refining stuff, and kind of, you know, you think, oh, if I really try and push myself on this, it might not come out great. And then what I just did, I'd make like 5 or 6 versions of the exact same track with different music and different
Yeah.
lyrics. And then by the time you get to the 7th, you've like refined
You're
it enough that you've
exploring
got
the whole language of
you've
it.
managed to figure out what the emotion is
Yeah.
that you want to put into. And for me, that was the biggest focus of this one, because the last album was, I think, great in terms of like production and lyrics, but
Yeah.
it was like, it sounded quite monotone to me now. And so the push for me was like, how do I put emotion into what I'm doing as well, and like
So
finding
what is it that motivates you, or what is it that inspires you? How do you work? Do you for instance, you take in what the reality presents and then somehow process it, and then at some point you go, oh, I've got this, and this is how I can say it in music or in lyrics, or
It
do
comes.
just-
I don't know. I don't believe in the whole thing of that people subscribe to, where it's like you have to write every single day to be great at it. I think sometimes it hits me and it's great, and sometimes it hits me and it's bad, and you just have to know the difference.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about. Sorry, you were talking specifically about which aspect.
what sort of motivates your not motivates you, but what is it that
Yeah, so
make-
like there's a song on the second half of the album, which you've heard the opening track with the piano.
Yeah.
yes
And so there's a song on the second half of the album that's kind of like that again, like flipped in a different way, a
But
grand,
you've
like
obviously evolved and thought
sure,
about,
but
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
a grand track. It's like, but it's on the heavy dark side, and that started with me literally sitting in a flat I had where I had £15 in my bank account, and that is the first lyric on that
sounds
song.
familiar.
There you go.
Yeah.
You have to be struggling.
And
I mean,
but that's the first lyric on that song, and then it just
Really?
flows from there.
you did
And
that.
it's
don't
like
want
it
it.
just, I can sort of, when I have a good night of writing, I can just keep going until.
but
I'm
isn't
like,
that also a great ability of people who, of artists, to always see it as a glass half full rather than empty, because you had £15 in your account, but you're like, no, I'm gonna write this.
I
I
I'm
mean,
gonna
I
write
wouldn't,
this
I wouldn't say that that
£15
song is a
though.
positive song. Like
Yeah.
that song is an anti-government, anti-monarchy track, like to its core. So it's sort of introducing as well what I want to talk about in that second half of this project, because it's kind of a two-pronged thing. But yeah, I think it was like, I didn't in the moment feel, oh, so good that I got this out in this very angry song, but I guess in like a way it's like I could see there's poetry in like real life as well.
I mean, you said that you started the album. It was started 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So, so when you start the album, I'm assuming you had like a chunk of material. It was like, hey, yeah, this is going to be the album, and it's come from a place of, say, whatever is your upbringing or whatever, that you could hear elements throughout some of the tracks we listened to on your album. But because of the process taking 2 years, and you were saying about trying to put emotion into it, is there anything that happened through that 2 years that, I mean, there's lots of things that could happen within that couple of years when you're writing an album. Anything can happen, as any musician and artist knows. Things
a
happen. You
constant
could be
change.
halfway through a painting, for example, Billy, and something happens and you
Yeah.
stop, and that painting you don't come back to for a while. In the same
Yeah,
perspective,
yeah,
you
that
might come back to a
definitely
piece of work
happens,
that you're working on, and you've immersed yourself emotionally, say, and then as life does, you get blown off course.
Yeah.
And then, so what kept you on course to not just finish the album, but start putting in some of that emotion where, as an artist, you're trying to put down your work in the most self-way, right? So what happened? There must be things there's certain things that will
It's
go
a
on.
long question, man.
Yeah. Well, there's certain
Question, isn't
because
it?
it takes 2 years to
I
write
was
an album,
hoping
I'm
that
sure
you'll
a lot
end
can
up
happen.
answering it.
Yeah. No,
Take
so I
me
mean,
there, please.
so actually at the start I didn't have like a collection of songs ready to go. When I did my last album, it was like, hey, I have these like 15 tracks, I can probably make a thing out of this, and I cut a few. Whereas I felt what you sacrifice by doing that is you sacrifice like cohesion and like storytelling in an album, which is really important to me, and for a concept album as well. So this time it was like, it started with that first track that you've heard on the piano,
Yep.
and then it was like, okay, this is the sound of something that can be achieved. Now what do I like, how do I want to get into what that's kind of talking about? And for me the whole album is about like chipping away until you get to kind of what it really is.
It's like
about.
deconstructing and moving
Yeah.
to the next one and deconstructing even more.
Yeah,
Kind of.
and so that 2 year process was actually me figuring out the order of that, like the patterns I wanted to repeat, the lyrics that you kind of repeat, and the refrains and things that you bring out,
Yeah.
because it is really like, as someone like when I used to have piano lessons with
Yeah.
Adriana, I was like really into film, and I wanted to be a filmmaker, and that was my thing. So I think I still have some of that script writing brain in me when I'm trying to assemble something like a story, and so that takes time, because
Yeah.
It's like you're building a landscape.
for sure, and sometimes you go, there's a chapter missing and I don't know what it is,
Yeah, but
and
you
then
keep rereading it over.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
you make something, and then it's like, well, this is awful, I don't want anyone to sit. But then you keep, like I was talking about that like refining process, you keep trying to make the same thing from scratch, and then eventually it kind of appears to you. But it took a long time, and a lot of
It's
like
almost
Yeah.
it's almost like unearthing something. It's like digging for artifacts and kind of
yeah, you're looking
because-
at like so in my head I'm like, that first track's the rubble, and you're like trying to search through it for like these
Yeah.
other little bits of answers where you can
and
take it.
as you keep looking, you will find
Yeah.
new things.
So then you talked about, sorry, the rest of the question was about how do I find the emotional core of it. So
Yeah.
like it was like, yeah, so the album is quite intimately about my own personal life, and when things changed my personal life, that affected parts of it. So my dad passed away this year, which like changed I didn't change any of the content of the album, but it changed the context of where it sat for me, because it is about my father partly and our relationship. So it was like, this is no longer like just a statement I'm making in the middle of my life. It's like now it's like a eulogy. So
more poignancy and everything.
So that week when I found out he died, I went back into the studio and we re-recorded like quite a few of those heavier songs on the other end, and it just recontextualizes the vocals as well and makes everything feel a little bit more emotive. So stuff like that, and then other life events.
You don't need much
Incredible.
more kind of. If you're going to be going along a track and someone's going to, I mean, that's not gust of wind. I mean, you've got hurricane blowing from the side for you to be. You know, I think kudos to you and hats off to you to be able to try to actually finish the work.
And giving yourself 2 years to produce it as well. You've got to. You won't cover absolutely everything, but pretty much everything that you could think of as the process went on, regardless of all the interruptions. Yeah,
and it's
give
great.
yourself plenty of time to get it right.
It's great as well because while you're working on stuff, you sometimes
express yourself better.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
You make stuff that you realise doesn't fit on what you're making. But then I end up with things like I did a summer EP, which was just like 4 really fun summer tracks that were all kind of could have been on the album or something, and it was just like, no, I'm just gonna let
little babies.
I'm
You
just
don't
gonna
cast them away. They can all be.
But I was like, no,
part of something.
people for the summer when they're driving in their car, I can see this. Everyone like can dance to this, and then that kind of it's almost like a nice starter course when you're about to make an album that is so heavy on the other side. It's like, all right, let's get comfortable.
No, I like the approach.
Yeah. And then that's why the album.
Ease them in.
Starter, aperitif.
Yeah, and then you give them the main course.
You know,
like they've gotten used to the sound, now they got something to chew on, right?
Now you're getting a hog roast, no potatoes.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I mean, we should be. Do we have a clip of the single at all that we might be able to?
Alpha Core.
Cool. It's available on all streaming platforms, including Spotify. If you want to get to know more about Ellis, it's www.com. Ellis Everson. No. Sorry.
.com.
Wait. www.elliseverson.com.
And you can find me
get
anywhere.
this wrong,
No one
sorry.
else, as far as I'm aware, no one else has my name.
No.
So if you search me on Google, you will just find
The
me.
best musician named Ellis Everson.
Yes, it is true. It is true.
As soon as I read this description on your Facebook, I thought to myself, oh, he's always had sense of humor. Yeah.
A celebration for your heroes. Celebrity is just a face with some zeros. Celebrate for the fee, but they sneak in. Cocaine parties and predators by the evening. Come the weekend, it's black tie greetings. Kinda deceiving, I've seen who you leave with. Secrets on your laptop screen, keep your lies tied up like Andrew and Epstein. Done a double and I thank who I came with. Then I sit there haunted by the same shit. If I make it to elite top floors, what if I find my idols are vowed to the core? And if you gotta make decisions about villainous propositions, will you spill the beans or act like you're indifferent? So much evil at the middle and the bottom. When I see it from the top, from the whole thing's rotten. Are the gains ill-gotten? Did the crime start stopping? Was it the fame or the vain pill popping?
The Ellis Everson track.
Released this Friday, called Core.
You want to listen to more of it, you gotta go download the track,
Spotify.
share it.
Yep.
I'll get vinyl at some point, I promise myself.
Come on.
That's my
Bring
dream.
it on.
That's
You'll
my
love
dream.
the
That's in
vinyl,
my
Billy.
day.
You'll be able to
In
play
my
it
day.
on that old record player that you've had dusting off without the records to play on it. You've
I was
kept
trying to
it.
remember the name of the dog.
And it will be a
Oh,
it will be a
gosh,
collectible as well with a signature. Once you
So,
sell it.
talking
Just for
about
you, just
the
for you.
single, people have just had a little snippet of it. I mean, you've got there, Core. I mean, we're making little notes. We're having a look at some of the things you've been up to. BBC introducing.
Yeah.
Mobo Awards. I mean,
Yes.
hello. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Wow.
something really exciting. I mean, that's like a scheme. Is that some kind of like?
So the
there's
Mobo Awards are an actual award ceremony that runs every year. So it's celebrating music of black origin.
Fabulous.
And so I applied through Help Musicians, which are a fund through fund musicianship and well-being and all this other stuff, to work directly with their Mobo fund to work on a hip-hop album. And I didn't get it first time, but I got it. And
Well, you
Well
keep
done.
applying and
Well
trying
done.
and applying and trying.
I got it, and that's what I was able to make this album out
That's
of it.
good.
Yeah,
So
well done,
great
Rob.
work.
Well done.
I'm excited to, and then so that was the Mobo thing, and BBC introducing is just I've just.
It's almost like I'm going to say statutory kind of.
You
route,
kind of got to go
right?
through it. It's a
I
rite
mean,
of passage.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of my
So you-
previous bands, Spider Sense, or even Here Come the Crows, I can't even remember now which one we may or may not have done it. We went and did a bit of the BBC introduction way back. But Daniel Garrett was involved in there.
Yeah.
Nice one, Daniel.
So yeah, it's always James Threlfall who does he does BBC introduction for the West.
Okay.
And every time I've sent in a track, he's played it, and I met
love
him.
that. They love you, right?
I finally got to meet
right.
him properly in person at an event recently, and he was great as well in person. And yeah, it's nice to get that recognition. I think at the moment, I'm focusing more on. I'm maybe not sending so much stuff to the BBC because I recognise that the content of what I'm making isn't something that's going to be able to be played on mainstream radio. You know,
you may or may not be Radio 6.
Maybe.
BBC 6.
Maybe.
BBC Radio 6.
But,
it's the channel to listen to.
is
I'm
there
not going to be
Radio
selling
6?
that or not.
Yeah,
It's
there is.
quality.
Is there?
That's the one
It
you
is
get to in
quality.
the next decade.
Well, they better make it quick.
There is. Before we'll sort of try and fire on through a couple of little topics. One of them is wasn't there something about best newcomer or something that there's to? Was it something to do with Glastonbury Festival?
Yeah, so I
Was
was.
that last year?
That was this year.
This year,
So
2023.
So I was nominated as an emerging talent on their website.
Okay.
So I applied again for that.
I missed that. I missed that
cool.
one. I was too busy
Brilliant.
being there.
Yeah,
Doing
sorry.
my own thing there.
Some of us
Sorry.
At the time.
Sorry, I had £15 in my bank account, so.
my gosh. But you know, we're really lucky to have been there, and we did a few things there this year.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
But
yeah, it's amazing.
We'll probably get to have a good chat about Glastonbury and everything else because the potential's there, and it's such an amazing festival.
Yeah.
And
No, it
everything
was
around
great to
it,
get
and
that
Yeah.
recognition, and they gave you a little write-up from one of the magazines that was part
Gives
of
you
it.
kudos.
And it was
you
it was
know?
nice to see like an actual magazine that was just saying like, it's addictive. No one. I think they exactly said it was no one's quite doing hip hop like this. Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's a simplification. I think there's an honesty with what
100%.
I across without this trying to sound like something. And there's obviously the cool element with a lot of this hip hop that's going about. And I don't want to tread on any toes regarding it, you know, making it all coming. I love all that, all these different vibes that are going around. But to actually try and stand out in this field is really difficult.
Yeah.
So, you know, hats off to you. We listened to the first few tracks in it and we were like, there's a few key elements
It
that were
really
standing out.
develops, and it surprises you. The first thing it entices you. It goes like, oh, listen to me, you know, and so you do listen. It takes you in that first track, and then the second it's kind of slightly different, and it's a slightly different vibe, and you're like looking at it. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, the third one. Oh, wow. Okay, and I would say it's a gradual.
100%.
Yeah, I was listening to.
Right.
I was saying to you earlier on. I could hear a bit of Public Enemy in there. There was some heart back to the Kumo D. Bit of there's some of the musicality and the vibes and the kind of beats are being dropped. But it's probably your sort of era, Billy. You remember all that.
I do, but it's distant. So don't test me.
Just the same for us. as
But
well,
I have
isn't it?
been lucky enough to see Ellis's performance live.
That's right. You
Yeah.
saw him at.
Recently, yeah. First time we met was in a lift.
Okay.
And
I mean,
every
he
time
keeps
I
saying,
see
I
him,
don't even remember that one. So.
I'm so memorable.
How did that go down?
And
yeah.
Did it go up or down?
Then I suddenly remembered I was seeing his performance, and the penny dropped.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been lucky enough to see it, and so he's definitely worth a follow.
For sure. There's
Wherever
a
the
good
camera
friend
And
of
I've
his.
It was at the Big Hat Cabaret, so like, what was great about it
Okay.
was
Yeah.
about making something really fun, and we managed to get everybody dancing on stage. Like, I was
wow.
encouraging people.
Yeah,
just
it was
nice.
as
Yeah, yeah.
Adriana was saying earlier. It was that shock thing. Oh, what's going on here? But it
Yeah.
was a great performance. It really was.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
You did well.
No, you got to do something with involving the crowd.
Yeah, it
Because
got
some
everybody
people are
involved
detached.
as well.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah, and what's that? That was the big hat.
the Big Hat Cabaret. Yeah,
It doesn't
So
actually
it's
happen
the
inside
steam
of a
museum.
big,
You
a
need to
big
be
hat.
getting our big hats out, sweetheart. And
I've got a couple of hats.
finding out
I
where
did
these-
wear a
these
hat, but
greats are.
apparently it wasn't big enough.
No, it just wouldn't fit. through
Story
the
of my
door.
life.
Yeah.
I mean, so listen, it's great having you on the show. To be able to at least initially get a little chat, find out what it is that's kind of got you to where you're at. I mean, we'll come back to talking a bit more in depth in some of the album, about the song, and maybe about where you're going to be going to and what some of your aspirations are. But before we do that, we're going to climb. This is what we'll have to do. We'll be climbing.
Oh, don't all
into
stare at me at the same
Monsieur
time.
Into the
Billy
mind, the twisted
Beaumont.
mind, the
Beaumont.
Billy Beaumont.
Mind. I mean, I've known this
Here we
wonderful
go.
gentleman for quite a number of years, and it's really great. We've not touched base. We haven't caught up for
Donkey's
what
years.
must be around about 10 or more years.
If we think it's 10, it's going to be close to 20.
20.
But we were, so we last kind of crossed swords, as it were.
Excuse me.
I know. And actually,
family show,
there was
yeah.
a 2009 Swindon Nude Musicians calendar,
Oh,
and I
yes.
believe it was round about that time.
I knew I'd seen you somewhere before. Didn't recognise you with the clothes on.
Recognise me with the clothes on all
Hey.
Tie down.
So I was I was a
throwing
front
those
page.
into
It was
the
a
older
really
audience.
tasteful picture.
You were looking like a rotisserie chicken in the.
A Mancunian rotisserie chicken.
I
You
had
had
the
a
pleasure
for
of
sale
tying them
sign
up in
on-
knots.
I did, and I
on
was
you,
only £5.
tattooed.
I was £5, and all of me went to charity, not just the £1 out
Only
of
a
the five.
fiver.
The whole lot of me went to charity.
Although he wore a hat.
And it was Alan Holmes' wonderful charity, and we shot that
Yeah,
with the
trying to cast my
legendary
mind back now. I definitely remember us wrapping you up in microphone wire.
tied up. And you had a bass guitarist covering your
Oh, blimey,
wonderful.
yeah.
If
Good
I
memory,
remember-
yeah.
if I remember
Excellent. Moment of
And we had to
clarity
get, we
there.
had to get one of those bass guitars with a slightly smaller neck on it, to have it.
I thought it was a ukulele, but thank you for bigging me up.
Honestly, though, for all those who may or may not know who this lovely guy is, I mean, I've known you for years. He is a musician. He plays and performs, has played and performed in bands back in the day.
Yeah, I'm not very good at that.
But most people may and would hope. I would hope most people that lived and have passed through Swindon would hopefully and possibly have seen some of your work flying around. And if
Thank you.
not, they would certainly recognise.
They would
Anybody
have seen
recognise
your
kind
work
of
at exhibitions and the murals you have been involved with. You've had your work exhibited abroad as well,
Yeah.
in many countries. So
Somebody's been doing their research.
We try to know. We need to know which countries you've been in to know which ones you're allowed back into, right?
You'd have to look at the website because I can't remember.
So
Many.
many.
your
Yeah.
work is lush. You've been evolving
Argentina.
and changing over the years. When we spoke to him earlier in the week, and you were
Alice
in the
is giving me the
studio.
eye.
He was in the
I'm
studio
just
when we
paying
spoke to him.
attention.
Yes.
And you are Mr. Art, and bringing artists onto the show to try and just exhibit how. I mean, first of all, we live in Swindon. We're talking about a couple of local lads, and we've got a young hip hop artist. We've got an esteemed, a wonderfully gifted artist.
It's
painting
esteemed
and
now.
Esteemed. and they will
I know, I
change
knew
and
that's why
alter.
you sat
I
on
will
this
try
next
to
to me.
add as many as I possibly can during the night. Adriana will come up with something Polish and some
no.
interesting, right? But no, I mean, there's a lifetime of work,
Yeah.
and what
Prolific.
Prolific.
got
That's the word.
what
Infamous.
got the grip? I mean, there was what forced you, or was there a natural step for you to go into? Because you're a full-time artist. You earn your living. You pay your rent. You pay your bills. You eat
Allegedly, yeah.
via it, right? Okay. I mean, to get there. I mean, that's as you know yourself, right? Alice, I mean, it's a difficult thing to gain enough gigs. Talk about gigs to feed yourself and get by, and to maybe even fund the continual process. As an artist, it's even more scrapped. I mean, you've got to go out there. You're not just you can go out and perform gigs, so you can immediately make a couple of quid. You can even go out and maybe book
It's the
or something.
same.
You can earn a couple
It's
of
the
quid.
same sort of thing because your performance comes out in the painting, and then you just bare your soul to everyone and just worry like hell what the comeback's going to be. It's either going to be a hit or a miss every time. So it's the same process, exactly the same process as a musician. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you're realised for a certain style.
Yeah. How did you come to streamline your vision to this particular style, which is very
eyes,
significant.
I think it's the seat of my nature really to be rebellious. I don't know what it is. I'm sure there's some
Hell
sort of
yeah,
psychological explanation for this, but it came from I was quite known for just classical drawing, doing people's portraits.
Reproductive.
It was mostly
Yeah.
pets and cats and dogs, grandma, granddads, that sort of thing. It wasn't my favourite, but it was good practice. But I'd always get that, you didn't quite get the
Frustrated.
eyes
You wanted
right.
to- you
It's
want
all
to
about the
evolve it,
eyes.
or- yeah.
Oh, I don't know about the eyes. So in the end, I got so
Yeah.
frustrated with it when they came over, and there was a lecturer at college at the time, came over and said, need to do a bit more work on the eyes. That was it. Woof. Great big eyes.
No,
Because I'm
forget
thinking,
about
I'm
the
sat
rest,
there,
kinda.
I'm
yeah.
fiddly with tiny little eyes. I can't be doing with this. Whack. Great big eye. And it started off with the eye on the outside of the face. But once you got the eyes dead right, it didn't really matter about the rest of the form of the face.
Yeah.
So you could put one eye in one corner, one eye down there. As long as that eye was associated with the person that you were trying to create a likeness of, it worked every time. So I thought, well, there might be some legs in this. I'm going to follow this. And and that was it, really.
Because the eyes
And I
seem to
stuck
be like
with
the
it.
most important
It's
part
just
of
me
a person's
rebelling
face,
against
isn't
all
it?
that.
Rebelling against
The
what?
rules
I mean, what,
and-
you know, I mean, you've...
The rules and regulations of how art should be. And I think, well, it's just it's a means of expression. Should there be any particular rules for that?
What did you do before art was the thing that enabled you to feed yourself, pay the bills? What was the, you know, your chosen or forced oppression?
It's always
you
been
know?
art. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's always
I mean,
been
you've
art,
literally been an
yeah.
artist since you left school, and you've just managed to be able to.
According to my dad, since I was 8, I can't remember the age between 8 and 11. I was away with the fairies. Fantastic imagination. Brilliant. I'd love to get back there.
It's not gonna.
That's much better in real life.
Yeah.
So
Not
I was
far
very
from
in all the time. So it was always ways of expressing myself. I wasn't very literate at the time, or maybe even now. So it was just a way of me expressing myself. And so it's always been art, always. Yeah.
What's the most interesting? Where do you think what's the most long piece of art that you think has gone out to the world? Where do you think it's landed? Is there a palace? Is there an office in New York? Is there a, you know, somebody's home in Hong Kong that you think is going to have Beaumont glaring at them from,
Glaring at them with
know.
the eye.
I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be sat here now. So it's not happened yet.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I
and it is one of the 3 things on the road to fame and fortune for artists. Sugar daddy, sugar mummy,
Sugar babe.
or sugar gender
yeah.
neutral
right.
is one of the only ways to get there. Somebody that can carry you. Still
what-
looking for that.
Right.
I'm still looking for that.
It's interesting, that international thing, because since Lipstick came out, I started getting notifications from Apple Music that, like, you know Shazam, where
Yes.
like someone's listening to a song somewhere and they play it and they say, "What is this
Okay.
song?" And it was like people in Zurich and like people in like California
Getting
and
the
someone else in
international
Australia. But
feel.
it's not many people, but it's just really weird to think, oh, someone on the other side of the
Yeah.
world playing
Is
that
this-
in a cafe somewhere.
That has to be the lifeblood of one of the things why you do it.
Yeah, I mean, it
You know?
feels
Actually,
good.
yeah, I remember there was an estate that Lydiard House had asked me, the Friends of Lydiard Park, had asked me if I was interested in doing this painting of an estate from the 1700s. And somebody, I did the painting and everything was good. And then somebody rang me and said, "I've just seen you on the BBC website." And I thought, oh no. I'm thinking Crime Watch. Oh no, what have I done now? And I do remember saying, "What have I done now?" And they went, no, it's fine, it's one of your paintings. Really? Which one? And it was that one I'd done, which was probably about a year ago, something like that,
was
of an
the
estate.
When they photographed
Which is
something
typical,
and
isn't it?
found
I'm
from
known
there.
for a style of portraits with big eyes, and it's got nothing
Yeah,
like that
they
in it.
discovered the.
You should have just put a
an
big
old-
eye
an
in
old
the corner.
garden.
Yeah.
An old garden
Or
they
did I?
discovered, yeah, from the drought. They discovered an old garden through the drought. It revealed like some old
They did,
garden.
after I painted it. Which typical, isn't it?
So you had
So
the
that really
last known
bothered me.
painting before you
It
had this
really,
new garden.
really bothered me,
Right.
so I had to redo it. And then I redid it, and then the chair of the Friends of Lydiard Park came along and to pick up a map of the wall garden for the Apple Heritage Day. And she saw the painting in the making, because it really bugged me that they'd found on the drone all the dry, in the dry weather, from a drone shot, they'd seen the original gardens.
So
The ornate
footings or
gardens of
something from somewhere.
of that estate from the 1700s, and I thought, oh, that's typical, because I'd already painted it.
Well, you didn't get the opportunity.
So
to
I
fly
redid
over.
it, and then she came along and said, "Church is in the wrong place." Nearly finished on that one now. Yeah, it's one of the projects I'm working on now, because that again really bothered me. Right place. So yeah, eventually I will get there.
Let's get in there. So what you gonna? Let's go back to the album. We're gonna swing over to here now, and let's talk about the album. Right, this album, which you've just released the first. So it's the first single off the album. So,
So Laundry Day came out first, and that was the first, and this is the second single.
Okay, so
This is
second
the last
single
track of the
release.
year. Yeah.
Okay, so where do you think it's going? What sort of the response are you getting? I mean, it's early days in terms of this current release.
Yeah.
But where do you think it's going? Where can you see it going? Have you got some plans? Have you got some beauty gem gigs, some things lined up that are going to be, you know, we can be talking about now, but also, you know, potential. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes you don't want to put
I
them
mean,
out there, do you?
at the moment, it's very much just about launching that album, and I think what people don't realise most about doing that is it's more project management than it is like making music, especially when you get to like releasing stuff. But so at the moment, I'm trying to make that experience of that album coming out the best it can possibly be, and that goes to doing things like I want to do like a launch event, so that you know, hopefully that will go ahead, and just trying to make that a really engaging thing for people that want to be there. It's interesting to see people's responses. I deliberately gave them a fun track and then a difficult one, so it's like trying to weigh up what people
Toying around.
looking at
plan,
more.
though,
But
yeah, it's a good plan.
but it's at the moment it's just I'm quite proud of what the actual album is, and I'm just quite excited to get that out and then really kind of debrief.
Do you have a set date for that? Are you expecting
So
it
that
towards the end of the year?
I mean, it'll be announced this week anyway. But yeah, it's January 19th as I'm looking at the moment.
Okay.
Oh, so
it-
soon, pretty
yeah,
soon.
Soon.
Yeah.
So
Not long.
So you know, in terms of audio, everything's done. It's just about getting it ready for that date. And yeah, I just hope that when it comes out, people give it time. Just give it time to sit through.
It's
Yeah.
gonna. You need
Mature.
It's
That's
exciting and frightening at the same
right.
time.
Oh yeah, because
Marinate.
like
you're
if it,
just bearing your soul
if
there,
it,
aren't you?
I mean, I am, and then if it fails, I'm going to be like, well, maybe I should work
It's
at
not
We know
going
this.
to
Nationwide.
fail.
Yeah, we know this, don't we?
No,
Yeah,
the thing
it's-
is that it's not going to fail because you're
It's being
always going
released.
to you're always going to have listeners and those who don't listen to your music or don't like it for whatever reason. But the thing is that the most important is what you lay out there is the truth.
Yeah. Well,
That is the truth.
I've
Yeah.
learnt a lot from this project anyway, and like this is the first time I've been able to work with live musicians making stuff from scratch as well, and that's been just a completely different experience to kind of going in with, you know, hip hop production and you record your vocals and
Oh,
you're done.
okay, yeah.
It's
You've
Where
been
did you
working with
record
cellists
it,
and
by the
violinists
way?
and
Yeah, exactly.
pianists.
Where did you
Okay.
record it?
So I recorded it at the Music Works in Gloucester. So they're
Oh,
they're
that's
mostly
awesome.
they're mostly a youth-based charity, I think, because they do a lot of like lessons and things, but they're also a commercial studio, and they're just amazing. Like
Yeah.
it's
Fantastic. Well,
it's-
one of
yeah.
our
yeah.
Brilliant.
one of the guests on one of our is it the next show?
It is the next show, the
Kim
10th of
Cypher,
December.
I think she may well know something about that. We'll have a little chat with her because she's
And,
from that neck of the woods and she was a
Yes,
teacher
Cheltenham. Yeah.
in Cheltenham, Gloucester area for a number of years. So that'll be an interesting
Yeah.
to see if she knows anything about it, and we can maybe pick her brains and
Well,
make
talking-
make a network and a link, right?
yes, absolutely, because that's what Nexus is all about. I mean, speaking of which, I'm pretty amazed to see Ellis here in this room, which is piano room, as a recording artist
Oh yeah.
of original music. You know, I'm absolutely full of admiration for you because last time we saw each other, I was teaching you piano,
Yeah.
and and you actually had piano lessons for a couple of years. Would you say this had any impact on?
We'd like to
I mean,
think so.
so
Would you
like when I had no, but seriously, when I had my last flat, I moved my keyboard in towards the end before I moved out, and I was working an awful job at the time. But on my lunch breaks, I'd come home and I'd have my meal deal and I'd just sit and play piano, for like my half an
Oh
hour.
my God, do you know
Well,
the
there
style
you
of
go,
rap
you've got
that
your
you
answer.
work in,
That's
like, I could
a
almost
definite yes, isn't it?
yeah, I could almost hear that even just to explaining like the way you MC and you rap.
Yeah.
You could almost like you could come up with a little motif on there, and you could literally just stylize just how
yeah.
you ate for the day.
But so like especially that that first ever chat was that first ever track that you
Yes.
heard, yeah, was me just coming up with like a core melody that I then later on gave to a composer, but like finding a way to actually play and rap at the same time, which was a new thing, and then that kind of set the standard that it was like this album has to work with live musicians as well. Like it has to do that now because I've set this standard for myself that we're starting with piano and then sax. I got to work with an amazing sax player.
Oh my
Clive
gosh,
Bennett, and
love a bit of sax.
he came in for one day. He was there for like 4 hours, and he just delivered like the best sax
Blow your
solo after
mind.
the best sax
Blow
solo.
your mind,
And he
blow
goes,
your
"That one
mind."
all right?" And we were like in tears in the other room.
Just
But,
trying
yeah.
to get them to stop once they've started sax players.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely you had an impact.
We've
for
got
sure.
to do something together. I can't believe you've not asked me to play on those tracks.
An interesting caveat. I mean, I was talking.
I just know you're too busy for.
I've been interested.
You don't have time for the little people. Like.
in all the hip hop and all. I grew up with hip hop. Public Enemy was the first
Yeah.
band that I actually went to go and see at the
Little
international
people.
tour. We was talking about it earlier on. What was your earliest say, I mean, your introduction to art. I mean, we've got a painter in the room and on the show. You know, I mean, I paint and I kind of perform and write and do all the things. And I was inspired by, I think the first artist was Paint Me Nancy. First artist I was inspired by. Who was the first artist? Who gripped you? And it, you know, it could be Tony Hart or... what was the first thing? The first thing you got
Any
to
piece of
see? Was there
art
an exhibition that grabbed you? That, you know, because art, you might get into music and you're doing hip hop. There might have been another.
Good question.
Or was
You
it
discover
cinematic? Was it to do with film? Was it to do?
I
with...
mean,
Yeah.
so there's definitely earlier memories, but like I remember, and this is a really, it sounds like a cliched one, but I remember watching Kill Bill when I was about 9 years old.
Of course.
And it suddenly, like, I shouldn't have been watching it, but I was just like jaw on the floor, and it's like you kind of have a memory. You're like, I didn't know life could be this. I didn't know you could feel that from a piece of art or like something like that. So it
So
sounds
stylized,
basic,
right?
but then I
Yeah,
remember like then finding within music as I got older, especially like it's like James Brown and Bobby Darin.
Okay,
Okay.
Bobby Darin. I mean,
Bobby Darin, man.
Okay.
Like
Show getting on.
Beyond the Sea, like Mac the Knife is one of my favourite songs of all
Okay.
time. And like I remember seeing him perform some of these songs on old YouTube videos and just like he just carries something with him that I can't see I've
He's
seen
just a
anyone
cool
else.
and there's a charm and
100%.
You know.
Yeah, exactly that.
Obviously, I'm not
And
gonna
I
deny
just
you.
I got transfixed
You
by
have
the
too much
showmanship
charm.
of music as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I
Do you snarl when you MC? Do you have a bit of a snarl?
don't think so.
No, you need to develop a snarl. It's good to have a snarl.
What kind of snarl would fit me?
I know. I grimace.
Like that. No, louder.
But you've got this really nice kind of like a homeboy, but boy at the homeboy, right? So there's this, but it's like you've got this.
Whatever that
there's a call.
means.
I'm from Manchester. It can mean anything. You like.
Okay, all right.
With an R at the end of
Freely.
it. No, but no. I mean, what I mean is he's delving in. So the artist, you see a band. Is there a piece of art? Is there something that you could say was the thing that could shock you the most, say, growing up? Is it you know?
After Ellis, you've ruined it now because you put the shock tactic in there.
Well, you could just say what you were going to say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was Picasso, George Braque and Wang Gris, which was the Cubists. And I saw an exhibition just per chance, walking by the Southampton Gorman, I think it was, or Town Hall. Can't remember now, it's a long time ago. And seeing these huge paintings of abstract instruments. Really. I
Love
just
that,
couldn't get my head
I
around
wanna
it
see-
at all. I was absolutely, I don't know, transfixed by it. And it was as though it was yesterday. That's how the impression it gave me. I wouldn't say it was shock.
Well, that's
I was
if
a bit
it's
shocked at the fact that they managed to get away and became famous by putting old bits of newspaper in it.
I remember being shocked
Le
by
Journal, I think. Something
by
like that.
do you know? Obviously, you must know Goya.
Yeah.
And like I remember seeing Saturn devouring his son for the first time.
Right,
And
wow.
obviously, completely different style of art to
Yeah.
some of what we're talking about. But like I remember seeing that and being like,
It's a nice
It's visceral
emotional
and-
impact.
yeah,
because you remember
100%.
it vividly.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of art around at home? Was there art on the walls? Was it
No.
Was there no?
just oof.
They made you. They made you.
They
so,
made me, and
you know.
I think they taught me a lot in what they did and didn't do in my life, and that taught me a lot about how I want to conduct myself and what type of person I want to be. And there's a lot of that in this album, and sort of discussing about like breaking bad habits that you pick up from your parents, you know, and not trying to pass it on to your
No,
kids
that's
one
right.
day.
That I'm sure they can be responsible for some bad habits. Some of them we find and search out. But
Yeah.
so I mean, so the story with your mum and dad, is that something that you plough a lot of that into your work? Is that something that drives you? Is that like the bit of nitrous oxide to your work, or do you find, so for example, when we were talking earlier on, you were saying it took a couple of years for your album to come to fruition from the start, and you said so this year your dad passed away and you were in the middle of recording or finalising that album.
Yeah.
So I get we chatted and obviously it's not changed. You've not rewritten any of the tracks, but you will certainly perform some of those songs. And no doubt, I would imagine, with a lot more verve and even
Differently.
with some of the songs where you might have been say maybe tongue in cheek or being careful.
Yeah.
And no doubt say you've been writing in some there, and suddenly that will have a whole different take on.
Yeah.
you know. And
Because, like you said, it started with a story
Good
between you and your father, and
How did it end up like this?
and then
Sorry.
like this, and what has become of it, and what it ended as a eulogy, and you know, how did you cope with the feeling that was there originally at the beginning of making the album, and then at the end, where actually it was kind of all, yes, they're pretty much recorded, but it was all about maybe putting some final vocals in, or you know, and
So
then
the question is more about specifically like the feeling of it.
yeah, because I
it's
can't
gonna grow,
imagine,
it's
you
gonna
know,
become
because
much more emotive, isn't it? And
Yeah.
and
how did
so-
that impact the way you perform these songs, the way you feel about
I
these
mean,
songs?
it was about tapping into something that I knew I needed to feel for this to be what I wanted it to be. For it to achieve like the catharsis I kind of want to deliver with my music, like it needed for me to go to places I wasn't really great with, and it's like tapping into parts of like actor training and stuff and bringing up like
Yeah.
emotions, but it's like.
But that's what's really valuable in art. That's what we're
And it
giving
was
out
so
there for
important for
people
me
to
to
relate
do
to.
that, to push myself, because the work feels so important to me this time. And you talked about like, are my parents a driving force for it? Not really.
But it can be indirectly,
No,
can't
no,
they?
but
You know,
but I think you know, my upbringing affects me every day as it does everyone else.
Yeah.
But like it's specifically, this project is about that, and is about kind of getting that out of the way, because I felt like I had a lot of stuff to say that if I didn't get it out, it was gonna just kind of make the
you
rest.
can't close the door.
I
on it
couldn't
then,
make
and-
anything else. I couldn't make
Yeah.
anything else because that's what I wanted to talk about, and you know, I'm excited to now go to something completely different.
You
Absolutely.
can close the door on the
Yeah.
chapter on that, can't you?
Yeah.
But that's, you know, that's
But it's
quite...
been difficult. It's been difficult because like it's
I
like
know.
it's like a trap of your own making. Like you make something about really difficult times in your life, and then when I'm doing like these interviews or documentaries or other things that we've been shooting, and you have to constantly keep talking about those things all the time, I was like, damn, I've made my own like situation here. And but I think it's important. To me, it feels important enough that it's okay, because
Yeah, I mean, I think
Thematically,
it's
that's-
just one of those. It's kind of fortunate that the emotional hand grenade
yeah.
that you sort of dealt with during that process, one would hope, will fuel the kind of next process in the next piece of body of work that you do. So, you know, I think that, you know, everybody has
I think that's fundamental
these tough
for all
stories, and
creatives,
everybody's
isn't it?
is
Yeah,
finding
it's
these things at certain times as well. And I just think it's really
difficult to
hats off
explain.
again, really, to finalise the work, because sometimes you'd find that really knocks somebody off. But actually, you know, I think you should hopefully be inspired.
But
and-
also,
and
it's like
you'll
life
churn
is
it out.
offering. Life is art, and being an artist is like one of the. It's such a privilege and such a great thing to actually be able to take what is happening to us, and be able to encapsulate it in some art form, whether it's an album, or a painting, mural, or a piece of music. You know,
It would
whatever
drive
it is.
us absolutely crazy if we had no means of expression on that. Yeah, so we've got to do it regardless.
Because earlier we talked, and
Even if
Billy-
you fall flat on your face and stuff, we just seem to have just enough to pick ourselves back up and keep going. Because
Somehow.
it's that fuel, yeah.
Somehow.
It's difficult to explain because it's emotional. It's very
Yes.
difficult to explain.
It's somehow, yeah.
Because you said you've got to, you just simply have to paint,
Yeah,
and that's it.
just got to do it.
It's not a
yeah.
choice.
So
it's
you're
just there.
yeah, if there was maybe a snapshot of his
Yeah.
emotional well-being of each painting, if you was to take a picture of him and then
Yes.
paint a picture of the painting, you would probably see.
I had a cousin that would
an
see
evolution of
see where I was
sorrow
at,
and
where I was
pain
at in
and-
my life with each painting that I brought out, even though I didn't think it was that
No,
obvious.
because every day
Because it was
you're
there, yeah.
there and you're living
Yeah.
the watching the puppy grow, as it were.
Yeah,
And so
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing. It's like, as an artist, you're going to be shaped by all the things, the tragedies, the joys, the celebrations.
yeah, it's very
the-
individual. Yeah, in
You
that,
know, and
in
you're going to
that
be shaped by
respect.
those, and it's going to be interesting how you swim the waters of evolution when you're trying to also navigate being relevant, being a musician. 'Cause hip hop, I mean, what do you think you're gonna? What are you gonna flavour into next? Are you gonna, you know, with the piano link?
Link.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? You know, you can play piano. You're gonna be like bringing a bit of a John Legend vibe. You could be rapping a
You can
thing.
play
I mean,
Bit. But I'm just interested in working with live musicians, and also just like finding other ways to push myself as well. I think like that thing of like bringing emotion to music on this one, it was like, okay, I've done what I need to for this project, but I can sense that there's somewhere else. Like I'm interested in exploring like both like a really great fun folk, whatever it ends up being. Because obviously I work with Ezra Bell on the single Lipstick, which is nearly at like 100,000 streams. So keep listening to it.
Brilliant.
But
keep listening, you'll be able to buy a coffee.
Well, actually, Lipstick's
It's a round of coffee.
I will say the one success I'll allow myself is I went on a trip to Edinburgh just after Lipstick came out, and I realised that like my trip was paid for from Lipstick. So
Amazing.
it was like the first time I'd made a track that paid itself back.
We'll be
and,
taking
like,
notes.
Yep.
We'll be taking notes
so
later.
it was it was. I mean, he'd walked to school.
And you just approached him? How did it?
I messaged. So he lives in America. So
Yeah.
I sent him a message on Twitter, and I just said, "Hey, I really like your music," and I didn't say anything about me. I just said, "I really love your stuff, and I just want you to know." And through his own curiosity, he went through my profile, listened to a track I had out
Wow,
4 years
it
ago
was-
or something,
Stepped in.
and he was like, "Oh yeah, that's really cool. If you ever need a hook, let me know." And that, even the
yeah.
track that he listened to was already like 3 years behind where I was at, what I was working on at that point.
So all it took was a message, a phone call.
And then he was curious enough to check me out to Swindon as well. Weirdly enough, he ended up in wherever he is now, but he has some link to Swindon.
We need to do some research.
But
Matt,
those guys are massive.
Matt, we need to.
But
How he has
those
a
guys
link
are like the early 2000s, and they kind of been making this amazing folk music. And
Okay.
like, especially when I'm making hip hop, the last thing I want to listen to is more hip hop, so I listen to their sort of
Yeah.
stuff.
Okay.
And then we made it. It took
To-
a long
to be-
time. It took a long time to make it because it only came out this year.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, it's something I can actually be like, oh yeah, I made a track with someone I listened to when I was 15.
Oh, good.
It's pretty great.
It
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
golden.
And he's a lovely guy as well. Like he is great. So, and I've worked with some people, collaborators who are famous. And
Well,
are
we
awful.
had a little look
So-
through. We didn't make. There was a couple of noted collabs, but I think it was much more interesting listening to your absolute own original.
For sure.
I think that's
For sure. I think with
Yeah.
that one, though, him and me, and it was just its own
Yeah.
vibe.
But just
How
from-
far do I change? I have changed. Well, Lipstick was actually written properly before I started this new album. So the song was written, and it just took a bit of extra time to like record it, send files back and forth through
Yeah.
emails and all the rest of it. So by the time Lipstick came out, and I felt like Lipstick is like it's good, but it's not what I'm making now.
Yeah. So you felt you were on one leg here, another leg here.
Yeah,
Bit
but
weird.
I feel like I feel myself. I look back on past work and I think I could have done better, and so I do. And I think I'm grateful for that because if I looked at everything I made and I was like, "That's brilliant. That's the best I can ever do."
Oh, you could never know.
I could never get
I mean,
better.
through collaborating, through meeting with others, through mixing with other artists, musicians, you're
Yeah.
always going to be bombarded with.
Yeah.
It's like an overload, sensory overload. When you're listening to other genres, other musicians, you hear these wonderful concepts, different artists doing things that you find obviously you find inspiring. You're around other artists. And so you're driving and striving. You're trying to put your work out, and you're looking at other artists and how they're delivering and how they're
And
appealing
there is
to the market.
obviously
right?
aspect of technology. So, for instance, if you you compose a tune or you put a tune together, you write your lyrics, and then it comes to a studio mixing, mastering. How did you find that aspect of musicianship?
If you're not playing and writing the music yourself on a piano, how
Yeah.
are you working with these other musicians? Were you
Oh,
writing
yeah.
the pieces? What kind of
No, so
kit were
I
you
just I
using?
try and follow a lot of producers, and I'm trying to keep on track of what they did. But then, so I just get in touch with people and I write something to what they've created more often, and then by the time I get to the studio, I change it. So like Laundry Day, we recorded additional saxophone over that. So like the actual ending track is completely different to what that producer made, but it's still their element, and they're still getting paid for their work and all the rest of it. So. I start with music a lot of the time, and sometimes I write it, but a lot of the time I'm looking for sounds and things that interest me. But sometimes, again, like that first track you heard, it starts with lyrics, because I had literally just walked out of a call centre job. And
and
I
this is
was
where you
like,
wrote that Lipstick. Yes.
I needed to get it. So I went to a friend's house, he had a grand piano in his living room, and I just like crashed that out and he was in a meeting, and he came
Nice.
back down and went, "Have you just written like a 5-minute song?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah, well done.
And then
Yeah.
now it's got sax on it, and I had a composer look at it and all the rest of it. So
I mean, we wanted to sort of maybe delve at some point into, because the sort of music you do is much more technological based. There's lots of pads and synth, and
yeah,
people are writing beats for you and things like that. I mean, we're kind of intrigued by that side of things, aren't we? And we're trying to dip our toes into them little worlds and
beats.
but we
Fat
you know,
beats.
Adriana sits at the piano. I'm at a notebook or something. I occasionally sit on the
piano.
keys,
Yes, he plays.
but like that.
No,
But
better.
I-
using all the fingers.
Not too bad, but I am a proper dull. I have no idea. I'm a techno. What is the word for someone who has just zero?
technophobe.
Technically
You'll know it, Billy, because you're
inept.
probably as much as I am a
Nut
techno
job came
noob.
to mind. That's yeah,
I'm a
nut
techno
job.
noob. Like I have my
Techno
son
nut job.
Phoenix is sat in there, and he's probably just like, "Oh my god, Daddy,
It's a term
I
you
could
do.
show you everything."
techno nut job. That sounds
I
like a
have
good book. or
zero
something.
clue. I mean, you know,
There you
but
go.
the technology that
Inspiring
you
all the
guys
way.
and the sort of technology that's
beset on all
available
sides
to
by
us
musicians.
today, right? I mean, GarageBand, you can have an iPad now and
Yeah.
do
Well,
half
that's
the
how
work.
it started for me. When I released my first song on like YouTube
Using
in
GarageBand.
2018 using GarageBand, and
Come
my
on.
my play
We need to get
Garage
our
band,
head around
yeah.
my
that.
PlayStation.
There are all
headset.
the
I had a PlayStation
available-
headset, and I would sing my vocals into that, and I would mix it on GarageBand and release it on YouTube. And
That's so.
And that's how it started, and I realised I loved it. And actually, when I made the last album, it was because I was going, no one cares about me making music. I'm going to make one big thing, and then I'm giving up. And it was through the process of actually deciding to use a professional studio, work with professional producers, and I
Okay.
went, oh, I love this.
This
And I
is
don't want
diff-
to,
This is different than isolating yourself
Yeah.
away to this.
writing it in my
Yes, thing.
pants in my bedroom. Yeah, it was a
and
different thing.
struggling
Right in
with
your pants,
how to
you
make.
know.
Oh, yeah, I need
Right.
to learn this program. Oh, it's going to take me 2 years to learn the program,
Yeah.
and then maybe in this
It's 2
time. I
years
can-
of mistakes as well.
But then
to
it was
learn
it was
that, though.
recognizing where my shortcomings are and going like, there are people who can produce better than me, and there are people who can record better sounding stuff. And
So
it was
this
like,
is
Give
why
the
it's
work
like-
to them.
yeah,
Yeah.
This is why it's like project
learning
management,
curve,
like you said
right?
before,
Yeah.
because it's delegating work, it's finding
For
who
sure.
is the best one to fill that job.
yeah. And
mean-
it is that is most of what it is.
It
But
is.
it's,
What was the most interesting, most unusual, most advanced bit of kit that you'd used in the studio? Was there anything that you can think of that, you know, everybody, a lot of the studio and a lot of the producers, that sort of genre, they're all harking back to, they're all going back to some old school 70s processor and
Yeah, yeah,
80s
yeah.
this and that.
Audiophile stuff,
Right, so
yeah.
they're all going back to, I mean, I remember working with a chap a number of years ago, and he had the old Atari, and he was doing samples,
Yeah.
and it was back in the day, that's what they used. In fact, apparently, they still use Atari systems and all these funky, I mean, it's old, but it's like, you know, they're bastardizing kit, they're doing the junkyard challenge, but with electronics and
Yeah,
kit.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So a lot of the hip hop and all that sort of, they've already done all the, you know, using and mixing off a record. They've gone over to the mixing of the two records in terms of mixing the beats, like in the
Yeah.
old school Terminator X vibe. Then they've gone to the digital realm where they've got using all these, is it the DX tables and
Yeah.
and so on. I hope I said that right. You know, and so
Somebody will
suddenly
tell you
the
if
you
you
know the
didn't.
old school DJs, they were building the beats, and you had an
Please do.
MC, so a rapper
Yeah,
would
yeah.
have literally a, you know, someone cutting the
Yeah.
beats behind them. It evolved, and you've seen in artists over the years they've evolved from, say, they will have the electronic drum thing going on behind, still also have a hip hop DJ,
Yeah.
then have the full band. So there's this whole technological link, which just brings another challenge. If you're working and you do say piano, and when we was listening to your album, there is a lot of room for, say, the live instruments. You were saying you was working with live instruments for the first time, and that's great. When you're sat with musicians and you're listening to a piano, not just
Yeah.
you know an electronic.
You are
It's a
inspired.
whole different.
There was also,
Things.
it was thanks to the Mobo stuff, because they funded the album. I was able to be like, all right, no holds barred. I can make what I want to make, rather than having to sit making it sound all right on the computer.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
using
A lot less to
subservient
worry
kit.
about, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
So it brings me back to was there an exotic?
Yes,
bit
the
of
question that you were asking.
an exotic bit of kit. I mean, you know, we're sat here doing this lovely podcast, and in fact, when we look around, there's, you know, these microphones and these
Lots
all,
of cables.
you know, there's lots of
Cameras.
cables and all these wonderful things. I mean, in the studio,
Really? I
there's
didn't see
people
those
that
when
are
I
taking
came
these
in.
paths and work in our realms, and I've been lucky to work in some really cool studios and. With a bunch
Are you
of
asking a
musicians.
question, Lee? Because I'm trying to teach you.
So what cool
that
instrument?
exotic?
Pheromone or, you know.
Yeah.
You know, pheromone. You know, what kind of instrument? What
You'll
instrument?
get
What was
there
the coolest bit of kit? What was the most far out bit of kit?
I mean,
you got to
it's like in
use?
terms of like the coolest thing was always just working with saxophonists and see like this guy brought in like 5 saxophones with him and was combining them and obviously that's not new kit, but that blew my mind. But working with the engineers at Music Work, the stuff that shocked me was it's not so much individual pieces of kit, but he had this completely in-depth knowledge of how to make digital music sound unbelievable. And so you ask, like with a great engineer, you ask him for something and he can just do it. And he can just make the sound
and
like
it would
that.
take you ages.
It would take me ages of learning it, and
even-
even a live musician wouldn't necessarily know how to do
Yes.
it. It's an intimate knowledge of how you use your tools, and he was just able to completely get what I wanted to get. So that blew my mind a bit, but that's just his skill.
I can't see it otherwise.
Yeah, sure.
Everyone just gets distracted by the AI.
AI is just so distractive. So, do you get distracted by AI? Do you think we need AI
you
in
used it?
arts?
No.
Do we need it in arts, in
I-
music, in painting, in murals, in art? Do we need it?
I'd completely lost a thread now. What was
AI,
it? AI
for some reason.
Well, all the
AI?
technology, because we're talking
You're not
about
aware
all
of
the
Artificial
various
intelligence.
technologies, certainly within the music, right? There's
It
loads of
seems to be
technology
quite
can
an
use.
important thing, but personally I don't use it, no.
Well, I don't know.
I'm very
'cause
old-fashioned.
The sentiment that I
guess.
see a lot of is that like people, especially artists, visual artists,
Yeah.
are devoutly against it. But I know like some.
I don't know that much about
Yeah.
it to have an opinion about it, to be honest. And I don't use
Yeah,
it.
I will
And
say
that's all I
like
can say.
there's interesting ways I've seen like so my art for my album is not AI. I always hire an artist, a friend of mine called Holly, and she is just able to create something. Like I'll give her a verdict and she'll just be able to make it, and she just from her mind, you know, and it's original art. But what she did for this album in general was because like the album art itself is kind of disturbing in nature.
You're talking about Core.
No,
Oh.
the actual album itself one as
Oh.
well, but that one is as
Yeah,
well. Yeah,
it's
she
the
did
claw.
all of those.
Yeah.
But for the actual album art, what she did was she fed a load of my lyrics into an AI prompt machine, and then she got all of the different images that they sort of came up with. And I might be butchering this because she hasn't told me. I've just heard this, but like, and then used those as inspiration
Yes.
for what to then put on the page. And it was like literally
perfect,
my
it's a
words
tool.
being fed through, and that's interesting to me because
Yeah.
you're not taking out the human part of it.
Well, everybody's
You're using it as a
skirting
tool
around
rather
the
than
AI
the-
thing by doing that. For example, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, we looked at AI. We thought we was having a conversation with.
Chap T.
Yes, we had a conversation with Chap T. Chap T refused to speak to me. No, she didn't, or he didn't, or it didn't. But no, I
You
found it
never
really
asked them-
unusual. Go on.
You never asked the pronunciation. Chap T. Chap T. He's a good chap. But
Have you used it? Would you
I
use
think
it?
it-
Let's think of a different context that you could
If
potentially
it could pick
use
up
it.
a brush
'Cause you're
and
not gonna
paint
ask it
what
to
I was
paint a picture for you,
advising,
right?
then yes, I would
Yeah,
use
it
it
can't.
all the time. Because
But it could be used in
I'd
a
love
way.
that.
I mean, there's lots of ways it could be used. You could maybe use ChatGPT or add AI for marketing. And so if you put
a
in
lot
all
of the
all
online
the elements,
sentiment that
yeah.
I see is people complaining about we're not paying actual artists to make stuff anymore. Companies are just using AI to make cheap images. So it's like kind of killing independent artists.
And you need to somehow circumvent
yeah,
that.
I can see what they're saying there, but I think the hands-on skills is always going to be there as well. It depends. I think it depends on what you're taking notice of. If it's
Yeah.
going to affect you as a classical artist, or if you're into the digital side and the computers. I think there's room for all of it. Really,
Depends what the marketplace is, isn't it?
It just
If
depends
you're trying
whether
to sell
it
to people across
annoys
the
you
other
or
side
not.
of the world, it's much more difficult to get your product there. If it's a solid
there's
piece
always
of thing,
going
that has
to be a
handmade
listener
there
or
and
a
then.
a recipient of the arts that is the real thing. So I think, like you said, there's always going to be room for, even if AI starts making and selling art, which I believe is already happening.
I think it's already happening. Yeah, I think
Right.
I've seen a little bit about it. Yeah.
So I still think that this isn't competition to the actual artist, because there's the human element, and that's the thing, how we digest the reality again around us, and this can be felt, and then
I think it'll show in the work
transferred-
itself. There'll be no soul to it.
Yeah,
There's
that is
some-
what people
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
there can be people who create super hyper realism, but it loses its soul. There's no soul in there. There's no
The other
Yes.
problem is all it's doing
no projection of the artist, even if there's somebody behind those
Yeah.
techno things.
All it's doing is taking other
Directing it.
people's references and
Yeah.
making recreations.
Yeah,
of
because
it.
somebody else who wasn't an artist has programmed that. So it's got that element of that, which just removes the
But
soul of it.
wouldn't you say that in a way perfection is enemy of performance or enemy of art
Yeah,
in
for
sure.
general?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, what's that
that's
got to
kind
do
of
with
what I'm
AI?
saying, yeah.
Well, because AI is
It's
a
almost
super
like seemingly looking for that perfect solution, isn't it?
yes, because it can
Techno
gather a
guys
lot
and
of
girls, yeah.
information,
Yeah.
process it
It
very
gives you what
quickly,
it
much quicker
thinks
than
is
us.
the perfect solution.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Right?
been programmed by somebody.
So
who's not
perfect. So,
necessarily
so
creative,
playing
are they?
playing piano, playing every song in the every note in the piece, playing it correctly, that
Right.
length. That's perfection. But then it doesn't translate necessarily into how beautiful the performance
No.
sound and how it touches people.
Yeah, no, I quite agree. There has to be, when you go and watch it, when you see
So
an
what
was
was
the
the
artist,
question you
secrets
asked?
here? There's the tech guy in the background.
What was the question you
I get easily distracted by the tech guy over there.
There's-
He's just so good
Most
looking.
of it.
God damn.
He is. Yeah,
keeps
he's a
showing you
good-looking
photos
chap.
of himself.
they are fully closed.
Yeah.
But it's
Yes,
with,
I
with
mean-
the AI, isn't it? It's how it works. And what with regarding we can jump the AI. The thing with the artificial intelligence and all with all that new technology, that it's all going to crazy climb all over us in the very near future, and we'll be looking at things, no doubt, that's just for the last 5-10 years, artificial intelligence has been used, and we need to get used to it. It's about how we try and
Navigate.
because we're all trying. You're
It's
an
about not
original artist,
wiping
you're
out
an
the
original
human
artist.
race.
You're an original artist. As long as
We
you
will not
continue
let
to
them
make
kill
your
us,
own carving,
annihilate us.
the AI will always just be a servant to us as long as we're actually still putting the pen to paper, putting the brush.
It's
to
recognizing
the
what
canvas,
is your tool.
and actually and keep using that. So, with all of that in mind,
Yes.
what plans? I mean, so let's jump over to Double B over the other side here, Mr. Billy B. And let's talk about like some future plans. What have you got going on in the near future that you're excited about, you're buzzing about, or that you're feeling you've got an exhibition that you're going to be putting together? Because you're always in the studio.
Since the COVID situation, sorry to bring that up. I know
Okay.
it's almost negative totally. But since then, there's not really any galleries to exhibit in, as far as I'm aware. That there's not really a lot of exhibitions going on. So the AI may be the answer to that, bringing that in and having a virtual gallery exhibition for each individual artist. You could make that.
send it
You
round
could
the world,
take that
couldn't you?
technology and
there's
make it work for you
There
rather
must be
than going.
forums out
I'm
there.
not having it. I'll prefer brush to canvas.
Well, they will. But
If
if
you
they
can
get
make
to
it
see your
work for
work,
you in a way, and I think that's probably how we'll take it on board. I think we should, because there's not so many spaces going on now. And plus there's so much expense to it. Some of the commissions that you have to pay on an exhibition now is 100%. So
Oh my
the
God,
end
that's
customer is
marvellous.
having to pay double for a piece of your work these days. So
Well,
most
this-
of the galleries now are
if you looked
charging
at
100%
virtual
commission.
reality, the suites now that you can be.
If we
the
can
VR5
take that
or
on
whatever,
board, the AI, and
You
then
can be
use it for us,
literally-
then we can give the customer an end product that's much more value for money, I think.
The way forward, I think it won't be long before we put in a virtual reality headset on, and you're in the gallery, in your study, in your studio, whilst you're sat there.
Whilst
You
you're
could be
sat there in your pants.
in your pants, painting your big eye
You've
guy.
watched me before.
You know.
Paying £20
I knew
to
I'd
watch your
inspired
own.
a couple of his
Yeah,
songs.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
sure, but
I'm in
that's
there.
where, with the virtual reality, that's. I mean, I was looking at what
Thank
a friend
goodness
of
I
mine
was
brought
fully
around.
clothed in the lift. That's a bit
And I
too
was,
close
and I
to
was sat in a
comfort.
room. I had the VR set on, and it was showing you an example of being in a music studio with a
Yeah,
bunch of
yeah.
musicians. And they were rehearsing. Incredible. No latency, no pulling around. I mean, the stuff that they got these days is incredible. So it's not going to be, this is not too distant future. It's here now, and I suppose we need to be getting our heads around, because it won't be for long when you start selling these platinum selling albums that you're going to be encouraged around some of these studios.
Well, you
and you're
say
going to be
that. You say
looking at
that.
some of
And
these
Ellis
things.
mentioned it earlier about bringing out. I might even bring out some vinyl. It's coming back.
Oh,
What goes around comes around.
vinyl,
So
man.
Absolutely,
I love
it goes in circles.
I don't think
No.
I'll see it, but you guys might.
Well, I can envisage. I've got this amazing artist, an old guy could really get your eyes just right for the Ellis Everson's eyes, right? For your next album, you read it here first, ladies and gentlemen. So it's about the collaborating and networking, and then and meeting different people. And like you've got your artists that you work with the previous one. I've worked with Billy before.
Yeah.
Billy created.
Well, I
the,
love visual art. I just suck at making it.
coach.
So I
You did
just
the
Oh,
coach.
you should come along to one of my lessons.
is all about, and we have to be mixing it up. What's next on the horizons, and what have you got going on, Billy?
There's a 40th anniversary going on for the charity that I work for, Reach Inclusive Arts, or is it Arts
Reach
Inclusive?
Reach
Did you look
Inclusive
it up?
Arts.
Did you do research? Did he get, is that what he says?
We've done it all.
He's doing
We had the Inclusive Arts. There's been loads of work on the murals.
So
There's
that'll
photographs of
definitely
you and Ken White.
be the latest project at the moment. Plus, I'm still putting that church in the right place
Oh,
before it drives me insane.
but you don't need to do any digging. I mean, I know.
I don't do digging.
With the church.
I definitely do not do digging.
He's a bloody painter.
I
come
know.
That's one of my pet hates, along with eating and going to the toilet.
on.
What's-
Life's-
Can't
life's
stand any of them.
relentless.
They so much get in the way.
Have you spent much time in the Swindon scene recently? Playing, performing? When was the
Especially,
last gig you
I
in
did a
Swindon?
show on September 15th as part of the Swindon Shuffle at the Eternal Optimist in Old Town.
What's the Eternal Optimist?
It's a
Where's
cocktail
that?
bar. It's above Los Gatos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've not
That-
been.
No.
It's
I
amazing.
feel-
I used to go there a lot.
Don't feel because I'm.
Do you still
with
go there?
I used to go there. I used to go there a lot because they used to do pizzas and things on Wednesday nights, and they have great drinks. They're all locally sourced and like crazy. But
I'll come in and drop some bars with you next time.
well,
To come in
we'll
and
see.
drop
We'll
some
see what
bars.
happens. But that was a really great show, and it was the first show I've done in Swindon where people really resonated with it. And it was like it's a small cocktail bar, and it was
Yeah.
packed, and it was just like bouncing. The floor was bouncing by the end, and people knew my lyrics. And were singing,
Amazing,
them,
yeah.
were singing them back
Yeah.
at me.
Got
So
all that. It's one of the best things.
I
with
normally
Swindon.
only get those reactions out of when I go and do stuff in like London, because people here
It's
are quite
vibing.
tame.
But it's also
When are you
surviving.
playing in Swindon next?
Yeah.
So I believe I've got something on the 27th. We'll see.
January?
I've got something.
December?
I've got something in January.
Okay.
I've
Okay.
got something in January, so I'll have a live event for the album.
When he lets us know,
But-
we will put it on
but I'll
Nexus Art
also,
Project
I think I'm performing
Facebook.
I'm performing the week after as well, so I'll be in Old Town again.
What do you
so-
think of the Swindon scene? You can be honest and open. I have my opinion.
I
and
think
it's-
there
and
is-
I
From
look,
Swindon,
it's
then.
great.
I think there isn't much space for me to be performing, especially when I was starting out. Open mics aren't very receptive. A lot of the venues want guitar-based bands, or they want DJs, or cover bands. And I don't fall into any of those, so I become like a hard sell. And so for me, it was quite a challenge to be able to perform in Swindon until I had already built up like a bit of
Outside.
something
of
going on.
The
Yeah.
thicker skin.
Yeah.
The thicker
So
skin.
I really, only any paid things I've done have always been outside of Swindon. I've always been,
I mean, the Swindon scene, and we must talk about it. We're part of the Swindon scene. I've been swimming and dodging and dipping and diving around the Swindon scene for 25 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
Billy, you've been
Same.
sort of in and around it as well. It's got a very unique kind of demographic, but also a unique artist music scene in general. It's second only, if I'm right, second only to Bristol for artists per capita. Everywhere you turn, every street you go down,
no wonder
you're
we're all
going.
broke.
Well, quite potentially. But then Swindon is known, if you go back even for the last 20, 30 years or so, it's been an industrious town. It's, all the headquarters were in Swindon. You had Burma Castrol headquarters, the Nationwide headquarters, Allied Dunbar headquarters.
But if you think
The
about
list goes
all
on.
these artists, all these artists living here, which is amazing because I actually living here for I don't know how long, 13 years, 14 years in Swindon. I have met so many amazing, talented artists.
I met her first.
Yeah, you did.
You did.
And I've met them all in small confined places.
If not the lift, then some hallway. Sorry.
That's your thing.
Yes,
That's your
I am.
bag.
There's
I'm
a
going
lift,
to lose the
toilet
track
cube.
of
No, the Swindon scene.
the Swindon scene. Yes.
You've met all these musicians of amazing high calibre. I think that's what you were saying.
Yes, amazing.
Or of some
Yes, in
calibre,
Swindon.
right?
But the thing is that people who live in
Well, definitely
Swindon,
not some sort
is
of
just
calibre, that's alcohol
it might
free.
not be completely true, but I'm thinking a lot of people who live in Swindon, they go for entertainment, for arts
Sure.
outside of Swindon.
They do, but I've always used the term, Swindon's like a microwave meal fed town. So, you know what I mean? I mean, everybody works. When I moved there 30 years ago, everybody was working to the system. It had you had your monthly page, I had a close-up 30 years ago. You started seeing the patterns. You had the Rover and Honda and all these big businesses. And so
Very
everybody
industrial.
was
And the
working.
print
There was
industry as
not
well,
a
yeah.
lot of unemployment, if any. If he was unemployed, it was either really unfortunate
Yeah.
or real choice. Coming from Manchester,
It was less than a week moving in
Right.
from Southampton to here.
You
It
have
was
work.
less than a week I got a job.
a
Yeah,
job.
straight away.
And what that brings me to is Swindon has got a scene which, when I first moved here, people said, "Why did you move here from Manchester?" And I'm like, "Listen, I come from a place where it was absolutely the hotbed of everything was fashion, everything was dead cool, the music was dead cool."
You were
And I
dead
was-
cool.
Try it, right? But no, when you moved out of Swindon, you're in this new place, you're a new guy. And the first thing that I felt when I was there, I thought, oh, this place has got opportunity. It looked like it needed. I felt like I could.
This place
maybe
needs me.
It needed me. But I had highfalutin ideas, and I met some really interesting people in Swindon, and I was really fortunate to get to have a clothes shop, and I could, I had a designer, Mark Collins, a local Swindon lad, and he was making clothes with us, and it was one-off stuff, and it was being worn by people going to the Brunel Rooms clubbing, which was what Swindon was really
It
quite
felt like a
renowned
farmers'
for.
community to me when I first came here. It had a real farmers feel.
I don't think
Yeah.
it was a
Which
local.
was
if you've got
intriguing
30
because I'd
years
not
ago,
been in
You
that
came here
environment
from
before.
Southampton, so you had
Yeah.
some different, like
Yeah,
there was.
but
But everybody
originally
was
from up
flocking
north,
to
but-
Swindon to come and watch. It was coming to raving. People were coming raving, and
Yeah, it
obviously
was
it's famous
Brunel
for the
Rooms,
railways
wasn't it?
and everything else. But actually, in terms of culture and the social scene, Manchester was known for the music as it is, and it has been. But Swindon was never really that. You
Am I
talk to
the
people-
only one who was born here?
Are you? Really? Oh,
Yeah.
well done.
Yeah.
Wow, the chosen one.
But it uniquely, in the recent 10, 15 years, in my opinion, has risen in its collective standard. So you've got a bunch of musicians in this town that have slowly but surely they've grown, and there's some great bands. Now, you can go to
I think
Bristol,
for the
you can
size
go
of
to
the
London,
place,
you
as
can
far
go
as
to
musicians
Manchester.
and artists are concerned, we're jam-packed. We've got
Jam-packed.
Plenty.
It's nothing like anywhere else in the country. The problem is the
Yeah.
attitude of a lot of people in Swindon, and it's not Swindonians. I'm not attacking Swindonians because
Who
everybody
go
works out.
out
They're
of
beautiful people.
Swindon
But they
for
don't see. They don't
entertainment
know about it. You don't
and
have this dearth
Yeah.
of venues that have got notoriety. You've got a Fleece, Bristol. You've got all these really cool, notorious venues where people go, oh, great bands go and play there. And yet Swindon is struggling to strive. And this is the difficult thing I think you probably found, where there isn't like a natural place where just hip-hop artists go. There's all these things go and play. It's got to
Yeah.
be like a real specific thing for you to go to. It feels really
Yeah.
weird to go to another town to go and try and just go and play your thing.
Yeah.
So I kind of get it. But Swindon has to be a place where you can go, well, it hasn't got it, so I'm going to bring it.
Yeah.
Now, you can go and play
Yeah,
your trade and learn it elsewhere. But there's your gap in the market, and there's your thing you should be like, well, okay, Swindon's got a great scene, and why can't I be the one?
Well, it's been great seeing
Why
it over
can't
the
you
last
be the one?
seeing it over the last few years, just seeing people resonate with it more and more, and just like people, it goes from that's like the guy who does the rapping to then
Yeah.
people coming up to shows and
Yeah.
they know the words to
And
the
you're right.
songs and
Most of the places, and the thing that the reason why this town has such a dearth of bands, an amazing dearth of bands playing everywhere. I mean, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
There's always something happening.
There's live bands playing somewhere. Granted, there is a lot of covers bands. There's a lot of sort of the tribute covers bands. But I believe that a lot of proper old school scenes, if you go back to Liverpool, Manchester, and if you go Bristol, when the Bristol scene was happening with Propeller Heads, Massive Attack and so on, what people wouldn't have talked about is that at the time when these bands were purple patching and having an effect on the local scene, there was also a lot of covers bands doing the thing. The covers bands are actually quite a symptom or a byproduct of a healthy scene. It's just I think we're not quite seeing, we're not picking the fruit from that tree yet, because it doesn't realise that
It's
it's
always-
growing
it's
the fruit.
always going
It's
to
so
be-
self kind
But
of
what we
It's
do,
always-
what we do actually have here, because it's a town in opposition with a city, we're doing pretty well. Yeah, we're doing pretty well on that.
I feel there's this sort of thing where I come in from Manchester, I'm like, no, I'm going to help us all. We stand tall and breathe and walk proud, because Swindon's got an amazing scene. It's got an amazing artist, like you say, everywhere you turn. So
Yeah.
that I want to be, as much as we've delved deep into where, or tried to delve deep, a little bit deep in where we've come from and how we get to somewhere, but also delve deep into living comfortably is one thing. Trying to play your trade somewhere easily and comfortably is one thing. But actually, I'm not saying you should.
Yeah, it's not
you
so
should,
easy
you
and
should
comfortable
restrict
to
yourself
apply your
by
trade.
trying to stay in Swindon.
It's
but
a great learning curve. It could be
think so.
quite difficult
Cut
a
your
lot of the
teeth
time as
locally,
well.
right?
But yeah, cut your teeth. Yeah, well said.
It's always going to be more difficult to sell yourself as an original artist, whatever you're doing. It's always going to be. It's always going to be easier to paint pictures of pets, right? Easier
Yeah,
in
sorry, I
terms
got
of.
distracted by the tech guy.
I
and,
know.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
So
it is,
damn handsome.
Yeah.
I think
Please, no more pets.
no, but yeah, the original music is always going to be more difficult to sell, but also.
you'd think so,
Yeah.
wouldn't you?
But also, we need, people need new original music. People
Of
need
course.
new
How
original
new and
music.
original? Do you fancy doing something more new and original than you've ever done before, ever in your life, ever? In your life, ever.
Well,
So,
what's that?
I suppose we need to be sort of wrapping
With
things
the
up.
Adrian.
We could be
Yes.
talking for hours, right? But
What
We
is
could
that?
be talking
we
for
need
hours.
to be. But what better thing, right? It'd be funny. You've been sat here, sorry, and you've had this wonderful piano sat just beyond your eyes to the left here.
Yeah, go for it.
Adriana
I
is
do
sitting
know
in a
she's not a
perfect
piano.
position, and I think we should try and get you on there, and you can maybe
And we
just
just-
start playing something, get on a little vibe, and maybe we could encourage Ellis to freestyle a little chat about how we got on tonight, and I might throw a little chorus into
Yeah, we'll
to
do
vibe
that.
in.
We'll do that. We thank you
And I'm
for
gonna
watching,
and I'm gonna give you a
And
pen.
drag a painting in and
I'm
sign
gonna give
it.
you a pen,
and you can
and you're gonna draw the
what you're hearing.
what you're
I
hearing.
was going to graffiti the painting.
We should bring that in.
We
and
should
we'll-
bring the
we'll
painting
it
in,
and
yes.
I was gonna
We'll
do that.
exhibit. So Billy brought in a
was gonna do
painting
that.
of the Ramones, and we will.
Billy, do you think
on
you
the
can
next
go and
show
do
we
the
will get it signed.
Yeah,
and
I
we'll
can
bring
get
it
that.
in and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, you set
Whilst
yourselves
we're
up.
playing,
I'll be back
right?
in
Yeah.
a moment.
Billy's going to be back in a moment with the painting.
Yeah, I'm having a night off, so no sketching. I'm
Right.
sketchy enough.
Here we go.
Okay.
I'll let you get onto the vibe, but I might, if you.
Not sure which one to go with. Which of the sort of. I'll try something.
Just mess about. Mess around.
Can you arrive here back in time? Everybody wants to travel back to the time when the happy times, where the happy lives.
Cold open Jersey, Hoboken, chokeholds on corners filled with lung smoking. And California seems to be the goal, but I've been craving estates, repeating patterns on my own. And Philly seems to ground one in the dream. I've been doing a lot without a lot of cream. It's red rings and Ivans I'm facing, but seems to dive in when the mind starts racing.
And feeling lonely is all the time you spend. And you want to live, and you want to live. Tell them how it is. Breathing your air is all I'm needing. Breathing your air is all I feel. Breathing your
It's that 5 years on the go and job centres and finding that the glittering gold is off-centred. It's offensive to melanin to speak when you took a little peek in the dark and found the bleakness. Oh, I'll speak less or speak more. What's the difference of a sword when it's bullets at your door? I tore the force of your pain in a child's eyes. Wonder if you'll ever see the gains in your lifetime.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've been inundated with some wonderful artistry, some lyricism from the wonderful Ellis. Thank you for bringing on your wonderful painting, Billy. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Do you enjoy that, guys?
That was great, dude. we threw a little something down.
Yeah.
There's some great down freestyle. I need to be signing some of that.
I got some bars in my backup pocket, you know.
Ladies and gentlemen, here we are. Look, Billy's incredible work. I don't know where I need to sign.
You want my signature?
Go for it, yeah?
You're gonna put this on a bank statement or something?
Well, it's still wet, but if you've only got 15 quid, I don't think I will.
So I think this is going to be something we're going to have hanging around
So we'll
as a
get
backdrop.
everybody.
I think we'll get all the future guests to sign it.